Yes.
How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. Usually our PowerPoint presentations are kind of relegated to the workshops, but in light of the next two resolutions that are at least on the agenda, I thought it was important that Art Patrone, our Deputy DPW Commissioner and Sewer Plant Director, somewhat present and do a little Q&A with the board before we venture into these resolutions. So, Art, I'll hand you the baton.
Very good. Thank you. So we're going to discuss rate project MO65. This MO65 is actually split with the village, two separate projects, but under the same rate project number. Our portion of rate project MO65 is the outlet pump station resiliency and improvement project. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We had an original engineered estimate on 112. As you can see, this was bid with one. The engineered estimate was one contract. The construction subtotal would have been $234,600. And if we slide down a little bit, we can see mobilization fees that were estimated, contingency fees, engineering, planning, permitting, and construction administration fees, with an estimated probable cost in January of $405,020 with a grant. And I'm not sure why the last line is not coming up.
Huh.
Yeah, we had a problem with this earlier and it was resolved. If you want to bear with me.
Well, I know this.
I can pull
Well,
that out of my drive.
The board has printouts of this, so they have that bottom line. What the TV audience is seeing, I'm not sure. Certainly what have we uploaded to the website and social media.
We can do it this way, Supervisor.
Did you get it?
Well, I can do it this way out of presentation mode, if that is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so sorry about that. We've gone through this numerous times today and got it resolved. So the portion of the ready grant, that was a $501,000 grant. The town's portion is $320,640. The estimated net cost of the town in January was $84,380. We went to bid, we opened bids on May of 24th of 2020. You can see the bids were definitely higher than the original estimate. Construction subtotal was at $605,000 compared to $234,000. Mobilization is included in the bid. Engineering planning held the same. So the estimated probable cost from the first bid opening was $832,320, less the ready grant contribution, and that cost to the town after the first bid was $511,680. As the construction subtotal was over $500,000 and it was bid at one contract, it came into conflict with Witzlaw, which anything over $500,000 needs to be split into two. We rebid on July 13th into two contracts. Contract 1A is construction, contract 1B is electrical. We had two bidders for each. The low bid for construction was $498,500. The low bid for electrical was $121,650. The total was $620,150. We reduced the contingency to 10%, to $65,900. You can see the engineering cost went up. That did include cost of the rebid documentation, and also it includes construction observation. Keeping in mind that construction observation is a time and material, so if that is a not to exceed, we can control that and reduce that as much as possible. I do not see us maximizing that portion of that contract. The cost after the bid was $844,70. less the ready grant contribution of $320,640. The net cost to the town is $523,430. So it's obviously a large increase from January's original estimate to where we stand today. And the next slide will show why that is. I'm going to put this back in the presentation. There we go. So we've been working at different projects, and I've asked some of our partners to create a commodities list and where we are in commodities. And we've had one from October 2020 to March 2022. You see 15 items which are very prevalent in most, if not all, construction projects, from rebar to concrete to asphalt to gasoline, stainless steel, rubber, and so forth. And the bottom line is shipping. One container increased shipping from $2,200 to $22,000. I did not include that in the percentage increase. The overall increase from October 20 to March 2022 is 90.43%. And that is the market and economy that we live in today.
Can you go to the next slide, which is there? Well, that's an easy one. Construction anticipated to be completed in 2022, which means we have 5 months left in 2022. I don't want to steal your thunder, Art, before we go to Q&A or discussion with the board on this. The MO 65 is part of the Ready Grants. We have been catching up on the Ready Grants with the state. Obviously, we're really doing well this summer on the time schedule of all the other MO grants, which have to do with the Lake Road and Sandra Park. It makes sense to me that we would get this done by the end of 2022. But what you just presented, and I think what you were trying to present, is the realities of bidding in 2022 with inflation and all that. Just gave the sobering reality of what that is going to cost.
You're absolutely right, and I use the word construction anticipated to be completed in 2022 because of the long lead times in supply chain. We're not really sure at this point, but construction ideally would start, and obviously prices would be locked in as best we can.
So, do these bids did they come in with escalators in them?
There's no escalator, they're hard bids. If there's anything.
So if duties, they can't get the material for 6 months, that price is locked in, is what you're saying?
That is we do have some contingency in there to account for that.
No, not contingency. Would the verbiage in the contract state that they cannot escalate their prices beyond what they have bid? I know I understand what contingency is.
And I understand you understand that, but this is the reality we live in. No, there's not verbiage in there. That's why we need to, if the town chooses to move forward, we need to lock it in now. So once a PO is cut from a contractor to a vendor, it is the contractor's obligation that they will hold that price. But there is, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there is force majeure that has been played into many contracts within the construction world lately. So, force majeure. Charlie, do you want to explain that?
No, I don't understand what it means, it's not that. No, basically, things that happen out of your control.
So there are some construction companies out there that are not allowed to increase their prices. What they submit is a bid. That's locked in for the term of the contract. So I just wanted to put it out there that is currently going on in the construction business. All right. So
Thank
that's
you.
the reason, the impetus to ask that question.
Yep.
So this specific contracts, they don't have that.
That's right.
As an industry, it is possible to put that in, that verbiage in there. And I'm looking at these incredible increases from 84,380 in January 22 to now we're at 523,430. And if the project doesn't start for a few months or it's not anticipated to get done, by the end of 22, what's going to happen to that 523? Does that go to 700,000? We have no control over that because the verbiage is not in the contract. And that really concerns me. I've never seen anything like this.
I can't disagree with you.
Pardon?
I don't disagree with you.
I'm just looking for options. What are our options here?
Well, I don't want to convolute this. MO 65, the ready grant is it 540,000, Eric?
501.
Oh, that's right, because of the way the state did it. New York State did it in 2019, 2020, and O'Brien Gear, the engineering firm, the state retained to somewhat look at what needed to be done and said, well, here's the grant dollar amount, and they were trying to basically back into what would be a municipality having 5% skin in the game, okay? The scope of work under MO 65 has things that are town of Webster government related and things that are the village of Webster government related. So the intermunicipal agreement, Charlie, that you and myself and Mayor Byerts and Don White, the village attorney, worked out a couple of years ago, was commensurate with the fact that the town was getting $320,000 of this grant, and that's shown on your sheet up there, Art. And the village was getting, I think, around 180, something like that. And the village, from what I've been told, is running into the same situation that we are. That their skin in the game is significantly more than what they anticipated. And I've been told that they went and accepted their bids at their workshop on June 28th. Unfortunately, I have not seen that workshop. The minutes aren't available, so I don't know what they did. And that's why, Charlie, you and I, whatever happens tonight on these resolutions, let me put it this way, assuming that the town board ratifies or approves these resolutions to accept these bids and we move forward, where we're at then is we got a grant that we're the lead agency in an IMA with the village. And I'm not certain, how does that work, Charlie? Are we our brother's keeper? I mean, I don't want to...
No, I think, my interpretation of lead agency applies to secret, basically. It's not, it doesn't mean we're guarantors of payments. It's my interpretation.
Well, Paul Adams is not here tonight, but the way I understand it also from a financial end is that, we're dishing out the money in a lot of ways. Because we're in an IMA on MO 78 with the county on the break wall. And then the way the state reimburses us for it on this grant, I pay particular attention to. And I just, I don't want, I've said I didn't want to convolute this, But it's tough enough to sit here as the town board, looking at these sobering numbers, and also, there's two decisions. One, to accept these bids and move forward. The second one is, where does this $500,000 come from? Is it bonded? Is it from the sewer reserve? Where does it come from? And, you know, thankfully, because of very good fiscal management in this town for years, and I've said on this thing for years, even before I was the supervisor, we're in a position where at least we can pay for that access. And that's why I'm very interested. I'm interested to see what the village is doing, because if the village, on their portion, I don't know how it works if all of a sudden something goes a little sideways there as far as how this grant is distributed out to the town. When we're the lead agency, it's a $500,000 grant, but 320 is the towns and 180 is the village. How's that for convoluting it? Because from what I've heard, the village thought they'd have skin in the game originally of about 10,000. We thought we'd have about 25,000. It's a $500,000 grant. 5% was what the state was estimating was our skin in the game. As time went on, you can see that that number grew, and I think ours now is being shown as skin in the game of 523,000. And I think that the village is about 200,000 skin in the game, based on the bid that they accepted allegedly on June 28th.
Right.
Does anybody know, and you said you weren't at the meeting. You doing video, you weren't at the meeting last.
No.
I guess I'd like to know how they handled that. Did they also handle the fact that, yes, we are funding this and we're funding it through X? Because the village has different financial buckets to fund things than the town has. I'll just leave it at that. So there's my convolution, is that even if we move forward on these two, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And Charlie, I think you and I will be saddling up to talk to.
You said this is, right, you didn't say it, I'm saying, you said these are separate. I mean, we may be lead agency, but the village's project is separate, correct?
It's
I mean, physically separate.
physically separate, but falls under the same rate.
For the purpose of applying for the grant, it's one project.
Correct.
But in reality, in terms of the physical construction of the work, it's two separate.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that's going to be our saving grace, because if we deal with the state, I just, if we move forward and we get the work done to protect our asset, I want to make sure I understand what is our relationship with the village on this as far as they're moving forward, and if they hit any hurdles. And one of the big hurdles in this, you can accept the contract, but it's the funding of it, right? You were the village mayor, would that affect accepting a contract?
What's that?
The funding, what the funding source is?
Well, yeah, and it would depend on the cost of the overall project. I don't know, and quite frankly, what the village is doing is irrelevant to me with respect to the decision that we need to make. The decision we need to make is, are we going to agree to move forward with this amount of money with no protection for taxpayers with respect to the next 6 months? I can guarantee you this price is going to go much higher. And there's nothing in the contract, with the exception of contingencies, that protects the taxpayers. You can see what the price has gone in 1 year.
And I'd like to.
And in 6 months, it's going to be even
Councilman
higher.
Cato, so you've asked me that question, and as the department head in charge of this project, it's incumbent upon me to get you an answer. No contracts have been signed, and so I'll work with Charlie Genesi and see if we can sort of narrow that down.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't mean to be redundant, but there are contracts in the construction industry right now, and we've signed a number of them, where the job is not going to start for 8 months. We're talking 4 million square feet of board we had to lock in. we were not allowed escalators, and that's happened on a number of projects. So I know that is possible to put that verbiage in there. It's just alarming to see the number one. And number two, very, very concerning that I don't know that we have the option of writing a contract, not allowing escalation in their prices.
In my interpretation of construction while I was in it, John,
Yeah,
if it's not in there when it's bid,
right.
that's what you get. You have to make sure the verbiage is in there when you bid it, so that the contractors that are bidding on it know that no escalator is allowed.
Because
That's what, the verbiage has to be in the contract.
It has to be in the contract they're bidding on.
Correct.
It wasn't.
but I would imagine that would also affect whether they would bid on it or not.
I can guarantee you that if the verbiage is not in the contract, if no escalation is allowed, they will put RFCs in to address the costs of the materials.
I'm sure they will.
And that's why I'm bringing this up. That's my concern.
The only way you could
It's a great concern.
The only way to solve that, John, was rebid the whole thing with that escalator in there.
Right.
And then you might see numbers that are way out of line, we couldn't afford to do.
Well, you might and you might not, though.
Right. You don't know without going on.
All I know is we've been numerous projects, and we had to be competitive, and there was no escalation allowed. So I know that practice is being done in the construction industry.
Well, I noticed there's a huge jump, obviously, in materials, it's the
Yes,
biggest increase.
Correct.
Between the last 6 months.
right.
Is it possible that the material cost would be going down?
I doubt that, not for 2 years.
So it might, but it's gonna be a long time.
Correct.
Is there, the way this resolution is written, is there something, verbiage I could add to the end of this resolution, to both these? It's the same verbiage for each of these resolutions, it's just the 2 different contracts, that would cover your concern, Jen?
I don't believe so, because the bid itself is not addressing that. There's no verbiage in the bid that identifies there is no escalation in the prices allowed. Unless, Mark, you can contradict, correct me.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so, no, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, but in my
No,
opinion.
I would caution against adding something that goes above and beyond the contract, because then it's you're approving something that
They didn't do.
we haven't agreed on. So-
Right.
Well, I mean, it says here supervisor executes said contract, and it's a $498,500 to CP board. Charlie, I'm not gonna, I mean, you tell me if everything looks good on contracts before I sign from a legal perspective. Wouldn't we just make sure the contract is pretty airtight on that? Or are you saying because it was not RFP bid that way?
Correct.
I would,
I-
what's the timeline on this?
We've got a couple weeks.
My suggestion is let's take a look at the contract before. How, the board's discussed this, why don't we just table the approvals and just take it, that'd be my suggestion. So we have a chance to look at the contract. Contracts. Okay?
I think it's smart.
Let's do
Well,
it.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the board members. If they're not in agreement, then we should, just go ahead.
I have no problem tabling it for review of the contract, but I'm sure that the contract is written the way most of them are written. There was no escalator clause in it.
I would agree, and I think that if that no escalation clause is written into the contract, we're going to see very different numbers when they come back to rebid it, because obviously they're going to protect themselves as best as possible. And then we have to consider the increased cost of rebidding once again. I have no problem with tabling it so that we can look at that and feel more comfortable with it. But my other concern is that the longer we delay this, obviously we've seen that the costs continue to rise. But I'm okay with tabling it. That's okay.
Yeah,
As long
and
as we look at it in a couple weeks.
I just want to make sure, the devil's in the details here, so I have heard that the reason why the village did their acceptance at the June 28th workshop was because they were running into an expiration date on the bid. Is that correct, Aaron?
That's correct.
Okay. What's the expiration date on these bids?
Supervisor, I have to verify that. It's usually 2 weeks. It's going to be about 2 weeks from here, but I can verify that.
Okay. Because here's the thing, I know for a fact that the next regular town board meeting, Thursday, August 4th, in this room, Patty, you're not here, and Bill, you're not here. So that puts us in a precarious position on this is a meat and potatoes issue. 99% of the resolutions that we vote on are kind of low-hanging fruit. This is not.
Well, then we should vote on it tonight. Okay?
Well, I mean.
Right, they're not gonna be here.
There's a
no
workshop next week, okay, I'm not saying that to say, to try to force doing this tonight. I understand the tabling aspect, I really do. I just want people to be realistic to the expiration date, which we don't know the expiration date of these bids, and the fact that if we slot this into the next regular board meeting, we only have 3 board members here.
So are you,
I think we should, I know that we don't like to do things at workshops with resolutions of spending money, especially to this degree.
Mhm.
However, we have discussed this quite robustly at this meeting, so that if we were to continue this discussion at our next meeting next week at a workshop, I'm comfortable with looking at this next week, especially since we're all going to be here.
I would like to see a copy of the verbiage of the contracts also, if that's possible.
Well, between now and next Thursday, we should be able to do that. So I would make a motion that we table resolution number 3 of awarding the Ready Project MO65 Contract 1A to the July 28th workshop meeting.
Second.
Councilwoman Cosby?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cato? Councilwoman Wynn? Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
I would also move that we table resolution number 4 for the contract of number 1B, electrical construction, to the July 28th workshop meeting.
Second.
Councilwoman Cosby?
Aye.
Councilman Cato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
And just as a reminder, as long as we're on this, what time does that workshop begin next Thursday? Because we do have a budget presentation.
4.
So it's at 4:30. But when is the actual workshop?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.